Hi 310. So instead of meeting today, we're doing a quick video of what we would cover in class. Let me just say something about these videos. So you have basically 3 ways to get material this semester. We've got read the book. It's a great one. I've got short videos on a lot of the topics, and then we have in class where I explain it in class. I am hoping that you will get all of the concepts at least twice through using a mix of those modalities. So you should be reading the sections of the book before you come to class, for example, and class should be review. Or if you've watched a video, then again, in class, we may go fast or skip a few things, but we may repeat some things. I really want you to use the book because videos should not replace the book. I hope you have the book and then you add a video or class or something, but you're always wanting to go twice on this material. And then after that, you're into worksheets, writing your own examples, and that's how you want to get this stuff. So I just wanted to cover a little bit with you. This, again, it's in the book. It's the beginning of chapter 4. It's only like 4 or 5 of the first pages. And this should be review if you've done the reading or you're watching this and then you do the reading. You should be getting this twice, all right? It's not hard stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put the slides up. So these will be posted on Canvas as well. Okay. Come on, resume slideshow, hang on. All right, here you go. So chapter 4, we've got our basic classical conditioning down. You're able to pick out the 4 components, the US, UR, CS, CR. Now we're going to add a little some more stuff. So the first part really it's just vocabulary. Acquisition means learning. And I want to make a comment. So think of a learning curve. Basically if I drew something and it showed this learning curve, usually when people say, oh, it has a steep learning curve, they generally mean like it's hard to learn, right? But that's not what they're saying. Let me grab here, I'll draw something real quick for you. If we were to draw a learning curve, should be able to draw it behind me, but I'm not ready. So here we go. I'll draw 2 learning curves and then I'll show it to you. One of them is going to be steeper and X is going to be time and Y is amount learned. So let me see if you can see this. Okay, here are 2 curves. A steep learning curve, usually people mean like it's hard to learn. But if you look at this, who's learning faster between these? If amount of learning is on the Y, well, this one's going up faster. So this is just a piece of trivia, really. But I just want you to think about it. The steeper curve here is showing faster learning. I'm not going to test you on that or something, but I just wanted you to think about what's this learning curve idea. And acquisition is simply the learning component. Okay. When you do anything, you usually learn very quickly at first. If you've ever tried to learn a new sport or a game or an instrument or something, you go from 0 to knowing some stuff pretty quickly. But then as you get good or better or more accomplished, it starts to level off. Learning curves always level off. And it may be there's nothing more to learn. That could be. Or it may be to get to the next level, you're going to have to do something extra. This is when people start getting coaches to help them maybe get to a higher athletic performance, for example. All right, so just kind of thinking about that idea of acquisition. All right, the next term is extinction, and you intuitively know what this is. So if we have Pavlov's dog, and when he hears a bell, he's going to salivate because he learned this. We've paired it with food. Now, if I just keep ringing that bell, eventually what will happen? He will stop salivating, right? So the salivation that was a conditioned response, the CR there on the slide, will go away. Okay, so if I present the CS, in this case a bell, with no food to back it up, right? Then eventually the dog will stop responding. Okay, now remember we've already talked about something where if you present a stimulus over and over, the person or animal will decrease their response. Do you remember what that was called? It's from chapter 2 on reflexes. That was habituation, okay? Now, habituation and extinction are similar in that there's a repeated presentation of a stimulus and the response decreases or goes away eventually, right? look at this next point. It says extinction is not unlearning or forgetting, because two things show us that. Spontaneous recovery, which we've already covered with habituation. Remember how that happens? You get the response to go away. So in this case, we're doing extinction. We present the CS over and over and over until the conditioned response doesn't happen anymore. Okay, it is now extinguished. If you then have a break, so I've been dinging the bell, dog's not salivating anymore. Now 5 days later, I ring the bell again, he may suddenly start to salivate. So just with that break in time. So spontaneous recovery is exactly the same thing in extinction as it is in habituation. Now, what was the other thing that we talked about that would bring back a habituated response? It was if you presented a novel stimulus, then the habituated response might come back when you go back to the old stimulus, right? Remember the baby with one toy and it starts ignoring it, it's habituated. So I showed a new toy, then I showed the old toy and it responds again. That was dishabituation. Okay, you can do the exact same thing with an extinguished response, but look at this. We're going to spell it differently. It is now called disinhibition. It looks exactly the same as dishabituation, but we get it a different word, slightly different word, when we're talking about a conditioned response that has extinguished. Okay, so this is one of those places where you want to key in on what's the same and what's different between these things. Spontaneous recovery looks exactly the same. And dishabituation and disinhibition look the same, but we just get a different word when we're talking about an extinguished conditioned response as opposed to a habituated reflex. All right, so that's a weird thing that can trip you up if you're not careful. All right, this might be the last two ideas we're covering. Generalization, discrimination. This is one nice place where the words actually mean the same thing that you think they do in regular life, right? Because if someone goes, oh, you're generalizing, you're making a generalization, I think you know what that means. It means you're treating different things, stimuli, or different people as if they're the same. You know, so think about like stereotypes. They're based on a generalization. I'm saying everybody in this group shares some characteristic. You know, and it's probably not true, but I am generalizing, right? So you know what it means. So if you get trained on one stimulus, you're going to treat similar ones the same. The examples I have here are, you know, if somebody dates a redhead and has a really bad experience, they might go like, I will never date a redhead again, right? Just something like, obviously you can recognize that as a generalization. You're treating different people as if they shared some quality. All right. The colorblind rat I have is, what if you had a rat that you could, you know, if a red light is showing, the rat has to press the lever 5 times for food. But if the green light is showing, he has to press the lever 10 times for food, whatever. He learns these things. Well, if I train the rat and then I start showing it these different colors, if he's colorblind, he'll treat them all the same. That's just giving you an analogy of generalization. It's when you treat things that are different similarly, right? So another example is if you have a little kid and the babysitter comes over. Say like, you know, most Friday nights at 6 o'clock, some stranger comes to the door and then the parents leave and the kid learns this. They may start getting upset every time someone comes to the door because they're thinking like, oh my gosh, my parents are leaving, right? That would be generalization. Now, discrimination is the opposite. It's when you're treating similar situations as different, or you're just treating stimuli as different, okay? So you can tell the difference. If that little kid only got upset when the actual babysitter came over and did not get upset when anyone else rang the doorbell, that kid can discriminate and tell the difference, okay? If we go back to sort of our you know, what does discrimination mean in our regular vocabulary? It's when, you know, it sounds like a bad word, right? You're discriminating. We don't do that. Well, what does that mean? It means you're treating people differently. And we get upset when that happens and it shouldn't. You know, there are plenty of times where we say everybody should be treated the same, given the same respect. But if they're not, you go, hey, you're discriminating. You're treating me differently than the next person. So intuitively, I think you probably understand this word. It's when you can tell the difference or you treat things differently. So a pigeon who is not colorblind and can tell the difference between a red light and a green light is discriminating between those two lights. These words are actually very easy and they mean what you think they mean, but make sure you're familiar and they don't trip you up later, because we're going to need to use them. Okay. Now here's our last idea. This idea of being able to discriminate, in learning, that's good, because we want to be able to recognize differences in our environment and respond appropriately. So you can get better at telling the difference between stimuli. Now we've talked about excitatory conditioning as CS pluses and inhibitory conditioning, CS minus. That's a perfect place where you want to be able to tell the difference. So for rat, we would like to say, okay, rat, when it's a green light, 5 times on the lever press, and you get to get your food. Red light 10 times. Like, we want him to be able to do that and adjust his behavior. Okay, it allows us to adjust our behavior. My examples here on the slide, the assignment example. This is something I've actually changed in my own teaching. But sometimes teachers will say, okay, class, you have to write a paper or do a lab report, and I will put an example of a really good one on Canvas so you can see what you're shooting for. Well, it turns out when people see an A paper, they pretty much go, yeah, I get it, that's a really nice A paper. But what they can really learn better from is if we post a good A paper, but then I post a B paper and a C paper, maybe even a D paper. If I can post different graded papers, and then people can see what's the difference between them. How do I discriminate between a C paper and a B paper? They will write better papers because they can see what the differences are. And so now the teachers know it's better to kind of give a little bit of both. My beer example is, if you are someone who has a discriminating palate, well, then you're somebody who can tell the difference between different tastes. Think of like wine tasters, and they can go, oh, this came from grapes from the dusty road on a hot July. They can taste all these things, apparently. They have a very discriminating palate. They can taste the difference. So like in beer, if you're someone that just, drinks like Coors Light and basically water, and I say, no. There's so many better beers out there. And I'm going to, I want to teach you about good beer. So let's say I'm going to do this. And one way is to go, here, taste this. This is an IPA. Oh, can you taste those things here? Now, if all I do is I give you that one stimulus, just taste that IPA. Isn't that good? Can you taste this? You'll learn a bit. But what if instead I gave you a flight and I had 5 different beers? I said, okay, taste this one first. This is an American ale. All right, now taste this. This is a pale ale. Now taste this one. This is an IPA. Now taste this one, and you have all these different examples that you're being trained on. You're going to be much better at discriminating those differences, at being able to tell the difference between the stimuli. Okay, that's all we really needed to cover, and then it brings us up to the next part of chapter 4. Oh, shoot, one more thing. After this, we get to chapter 4, and there are other videos. Okay, last thing. All right, class might have gone 20 minutes if we did this. Temporal conditioning, totally simple. All it is it's your classical conditioning, US, UR, CS, CR. But time is the conditioned stimulus. So time is the predictor for what's about to happen. And we learn this because things happen at a certain time of day. Like if you wake up at 5:30 every day for something, you have to get up early, it's probably going to be hard for you to sleep in on the weekends. Your body will tend to, get ready to wake up. I know some people can power through and do it, but that's a really common example. Here's another example. Let's say you have caffeine at a certain time every day. Maybe you have a coffee break at 10 o'clock. Well, if you do that, many days and it's a habit, then as 10 a.m. approaches, your body may start to, prepare. It's like taking a drug. It's like your heroin, right? Prepare for that caffeine to come. And so probably you'll get a B process sort of experience. And you may start to feel a little tired, sluggish, because your body's like, hey, that caffeine's coming. It's on 10 o'clock, right? So temporal conditioning is very simple, just when time is the conditioned stimulus. Okay, now we've finished that first part of chapter 4. And you'll do the other videos for the other sort of more complicated ideas, okay? And so this was Friday's class on September, I believe it's the 6th, 2018. So get those, get the reading done, get worksheet started for the other chapter 4 stuff, and I will see you on Monday, everybody. Bye.